What's up, everybody? Today we're doing a recap of the match between Daniel Negreanu and xQc in Pogchamps 3. Let's jump straight in. In the first game, Daniel Negreanu started with the white pieces. He goes for e4, e5, and now a d4. He plays what's known as the Danish gambit. And the idea with the Danish gambit is you giving away two pawns, but afterwards notice that white has some very powerful bishops here, and there's a lot of potential to attack. Often the queen comes to b3 to, pair up with this bishop. Sometimes the queen can maybe come onto this king side as well. The knight can come to f3 often, and then to g5 and attack this pawn. Often you play e5, and white has a lot of attacking possibilities here. And so if you're playing against a gambit, you're up material, you need to play safe. If white has all of these pieces ready to attack, you need to get your king as safe as possible, which means you need to castle quickly, which is why in this position, instead of taking another pawn, xQc instead looked to develop this knight and then develop the bishop and then castle, not even worried about this pawn. So here, Daniel Negreanu went for e5, trying to stop xQc from being very safe and castling. But then xQc found a really cool idea, d5, counterattacking the bishop, and if white takes the pawn, then the bishop can take, and once again, black is getting ready to castle. Here, after the knight took, there was a check, but then black castled, and suddenly that extra possibility to attack is basically gone, and black is just simply better here because they're up material. And so if you're playing a gambit, you need to attack as quickly as you can. But xQc here did a very good job of limiting the possibilities of white to attack, and xQc, I think, played this opening very nicely. Now knight to g4, xQc is starting to attack himself, and he gives white this isolated pawn, which could become a target later on. Notice here that you did not take with the queen. I think that's a great move by Daniel Negreanu. If you take with the queen, then you're trading queens and you're just up a pawn in an endgame. No need to do that. Instead, keeping queens on the board maybe gives you some chance to eventually castle and maybe try to launch an attack with the help of the queen along this f-file. Maybe also the knight could eventually come here. So there are still possibilities for white to attack, but now it's going to be a lot harder because black is much more safe here with the king. So we have rook to e8, and now a really cool resource, knight to d5, attacking the queen, defending the pawn. Once the queen moves, notice nothing is actually attacked. This bishop is defended by the queen, the knight by the bishop, this knight by the pawn. Everything here is defended, which is why Daniel Negreanu simply castles here. We have bishop to e6, which is a very tricky move, eyeing down this knight, threatening to just win a piece, but also you can't do a move like this, doing an attack on the queen, because black can just take. They have now an extra piece also attacking this square. And of course, after takes, black, just won a piece. Maybe black could even take with the bishop. But actually, I don't think this works because after knight takes, bishop takes, you are attacking the rook, but there is knight takes here counterattacking the other rook. So I don't think this is as good. But of course, black is just winning in this position. So what did Daniel Negreanu do here? He played knight to g5. And the idea with this move is probably to try to maybe launch an attack of its own on this f-file, maybe eventually try to add a queen to this attack. But what he did not notice is a really cool move by xQc, queen to e5. Not attacking this pawn, that's not the idea. Not keeping pressure on this knight, not attacking this knight, going for checkmate. Maybe not checkmate, the king might be able to escape, but it's looking pretty bad here if black manages to infiltrate here onto h2, which is why in this position, knight to f3 is kind of needed to defend h2, to attack the queen. It's kind of unfortunate what happened here. The knight came here, but then the queen came to e5, attacking the knight, attacking the square. So, Daniel Negreanu kind of had to retreat here. And instead of retreating, though, he played g3, also trying to stop this attack, but of course forgetting about the knight. So here he just blundered the knight. And from here, it kind of continued going downhill. The knight went to f4. We have this trade of bishops, but instead of taking back, he moves the queen. And I think what happened is that when he moved the knight, he didn't realize that he was opening up this kind of tension between the bishops here. So when he moved the knight, he didn't expect black to just take a piece here. So he was very surprised, and he kind of figured that, okay, I have to retreat or move the queen, which is why he moved the queen. But of course, he could have just taken the bishop back here. But by moving the queen, he gives a queen trade, and then in this position, he loses the other rook, and he's down a rook and a piece here. not looking good. He does win the exchange back, but it's so little and it's too late. And I mean, there's even maybe bishop takes on g3 here, check, winning the rook. There's just so many tactics, but even if you don't find that, and xQc didn't find that, I mean, you're just going to eventually trade the pawns off, start marching your own pawns off, look to trade pieces. This is just a very simple endgame to win. xQc didn't have the most amount of time here, but of course it's just so winning, and here he found a really cool move, knight to b5, and he wins the rook, and here Daniel Negreanu resigns, because of course this is such an easy endgame to win. You can promote your pawns. Of course you can just checkmate with the rook if you want to. You have 2 extra minor pieces if you need them. Super easy. So the first game, xQc wins. Let's move on to game number 2. In game 2, xQc has the white pieces. We have e4, and now c5, we have d4, and this is a bit of a weird variation. Usually, first you move your knight to f3, and then after knight c6, then you play d4, because what happens is after takes, they can take, and your queen lands in the center, but they don't have a knight to kick it out. Whereas if you start by playing d4 before taking your knight out, then after takes, they can play knight to c6, and your queen has to move again, and you've lost some tempo. That being said, Daniel Negreanu does something a bit weird here. He moves 3 pawns in a row, and by doing so, he actually also blocks in his bishops. I would instead recommend, developing your bishop, taking your knight out, castling. Later, you could also move your queen eventually, but, you need to first develop all your minor pieces as quickly as possible. Then you can castle, get your king safe, then you can start attacking with the queen. But if you delay doing that, then while both of these pieces are here in the center of the board, if white manages to castle quickly, which white does, xQc is going to be able to attack quite heavily. We have the rook coming to c8. Again, you should develop your bishop and castle. Rook c8, the idea is clear. You want to put a rook on the c-file. And that idea is very common in the Sicilian defense. But at the same time, it's better to focus on first getting your king safe. That should be your first priority. And then later putting the rook on c8 would be fine. Here we have b3. Bishop to e7, finally going to castle, but it's a little too late because now there's maybe e5 ideas opening up the center. The queen drops back, the knight takes, and even if you're losing a pawn after takes, it's a little tricky. For example, here, it seems like you're giving away a knight, but if rook takes, bishop takes the knight here, and after Negreanu takes back the bishop to b5 check. A beautiful move by xQc. I wonder how long ago he saw this. I don't know if he on purpose gave the knight away because he knew that after takes, he can take here, take, and then bishop to b5 check, winning the queen. I don't know if he saw this, but if he did, that's very impressive because this is a very cool tactical idea. He wins the queen, but you always have to assess because it seems like, he's lost everything. He's completely losing now. Daniel Negreanu, that is. It seems like, he should resign. But in the end of the day, I mean, look at this. He has a lot of compensation. A rook for a rook. And then a rook and 2 pieces for a queen is completely fine. This is probably relatively equal here. And so, often people assume that they're way worse than they are, which is why after queen takes b5, Daniel Negreanu was already really angry with himself. He just decided, I'll move the king and deal with this. I'm losing another piece, whatever. But he had a way to save it, bishop to c6. And I think that maybe the reason he didn't find this is because he wasn't thinking so rationally. He was very angry at himself. For apparently getting a lost position. Again, it's not so lost, but, he was very angry with himself, and that's why he missed this move to save the bishop, and now it is actually losing for him. Of course, there are still chances. For example, xQc might blunder this check here that's guarded. Also, there's the idea of maybe getting the rook in, going for some back rank checkmate ideas eventually. For example, notice that if this bishop moves, you can maybe get the rook in and then eventually take the pawn here, hope xQc takes the rook back, and then you have this checkmating idea, which is why here I'm really happy with what xQc did. h3 here, just giving, the king some area to escape, no more back rank checkmate ideas, and, that reduces almost all of the chances that Daniel Negreanu had to churn this game around. So it's just such a safe move. I love it. Bishop to a3, the rook has to move. Now rook to c2, and xQc again playing very well, getting both of his major pieces on the 7th rank, looking to take this pawn, then take this other pawn, and just go for the kill here. So he's playing very, very well. the rook has to now go on the defensive. And if you're down material, then your main priority, your main goal should be counterattacking, making the position as complicated and getting as many attacking chances. But if you have to go and go on the defensive when you're down material, that is just not going to work out well for you. White manages to attack here, give this check, win the fork. This is just so beautiful here by xQc. I mean, really nice endgame technique. Here, I do think there's a checkmate in 3. You can take the piece here, threatening checkmate, and if the king goes here, first give this check, hit the king back, and then do a checkmate. So there maybe was a checkmate that xQc missed here, but of course it doesn't matter, you know, whatever method suits him. And here actually Daniel Negreanu resigned. There's just no hope for him. If xQc wanted, he could make like 20 different queens on the board with all of these pawns, and he's, you know, Daniel Negreanu is definitely going to lose this game. So that is the end of the match. You know, there were times where both players had chances, but overall, xQc really crushed in this match against Daniel Negreanu. He played some really good chess. I mean, it's going to be a really cool continuation for xQc. I want to see how well he does in the future, because this match definitely shows that he might become a favorite. He might already be a favorite. So we'll just have to wait and see. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure you subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.